here on the Christian Perspectives YouTube channel. And first off, I would like to say thank you for my, to date, highest viewed short. And credit goes to the pastor in that video talking about his belief on why the Quran and Muhammad are conspiracy theories, and it's a really good video. And if you haven't checked out my Why Jesus Over Atheism video and Why Jesus Over Muhammad video, I highly encourage you to watch those videos. And the Why Jesus Over Atheism video will technically get a part 2 in the near future, talking about why faith and science do not contradict each other, and rather they support each other. But that's a video for another time. This video is another one I've been looking forward to doing, and it's why Jesus over the Buddha. The Buddha, in comparison to, and Buddhism in general, in comparison to all the other faiths in the world and religious figures, I have a lot of respect for the Buddha. I love the fact that he tackles human suffering. He asks the tough questions, and you learn a lot from the Buddha. I remember learning about the Buddha in my philosophy class, and of course some of the memories are a little hazy, but and that's a story for another time, on why they're hazy. But he was a very wise man. He was very, very smart, and I would even go as far to say that had the Buddha directly addressed God in the sense of saying there is a God and he loves you and he loves me and all that, I would go as far to say that Buddha would be a lost prophet of God. But because Buddha was agnostic and never really dealt excuse me, with the whole thing of God, that's kind of why I would not consider him to be excuse me for coughing, why I would not consider him to be a lost prophet from God. But with that being said, though, why Jesus over the Buddha? One interesting thing is that some of the teachings of Jesus and Buddha do overlap. And that's an interesting thought. Now, I could use the stereotypical argument, and it is a good argument, but I usually try to not use the stereotypical arguments. I try and use more in-depth arguments, I guess. But one reason I'll go ahead and get the stereotypical one that you'll hear a lot for why Jesus is more reliable than the Buddha. Jesus' grave is empty, the Buddha's grave is full. Everyone has heard that before, but it definitely is one that you have to look at. That's a piece of evidence and truth that you cannot look over. The Buddha's grave is full, Jesus' grave is empty, so keep that in mind. Now, the Buddhist teachings, there are a lot of confusion around them. There are some that believe that Buddha said suffering is an illusion. Some say that Buddha never said that. Some say that he did sort of say that. And I think that right there, the fact that people don't really understand I think that right there shows the unreliability of the Buddha, because, the Buddha at the end of the day was just an Eastern philosopher. That's all who he was. He was nothing special in the sense of truly being this enlightened being. Now, might he have thought himself as an enlightened being and others around him? Maybe. But was the Buddha truly anything special in the grand scheme of things? No, not really. And personally, where I stand on it, I think Buddha sort of did say that suffering is an illusion. Because Buddha taught, cutting off your desires. Well, here's the problem with that. Certain desires you can't cut off. Like when you become a teenager, especially if you're a guy, and, your body starts to have rapid changes, you start having all these desires, you can't cut off your desires. You can't do that. That's impossible. It's even showcased in the Gospels that Jesus, in his temptation story, he was tempted. He was tempted by many things. And even though there's only one temptation story that specifically addresses Jesus being tempted, you can look in all the Gospels and see other stories of Jesus being tempted, including Jesus being tempted to not even take on the cross. He was tempted to not even take on the cross, because technically he didn't have to. He could have taken a sword, called the angels down from heaven, and wiped out the entire earth instead of taking on the cross. But he didn't do that. Instead, he took on the cross. So Jesus, even though he was sinless and perfect, he still faced temptation. He still had desires. But the Buddha says, cut off those desires. That doesn't make sense. You can't cut off your desires. You can't. You can't go through life just being this empty shell. And that's why I kind of come to the conclusion that the Buddha, even though he may not have ever directly said it, it can be easily concluded that the Buddha said suffering is an illusion. Because if you're cutting off all of your desires, if you are, saying that, suffering solely comes from human desire, how do you approach a cancer patient that's dying? I mean, were you going to walk up to them and say, well, this is your fault. You let your human desires get the better of you. Now you have cancer. Now you're on your deathbed. I'm sorry, that does not make any sense. And, of course, there are some Buddhists that will say that Buddha would not say that. And that's where I get another major intellectual issue with Buddha and Buddhism. There's not, in the sense, like, the Buddha is not one that you can really follow. There are many things I've learned written about the Buddha that contradict each other, to where it's kind of like, which is true about the Buddha? Is it the people that look at the Buddha as a religious figure, or is it the people that just look at him as a philosopher? Like what is this? It doesn't make sense. Where when you look at Jesus, are there differing beliefs on Jesus? Yes, some Buddhists believe Jesus to be just like the Buddha, this fully enlightened being. Some people in Buddhism believe that. I don't think all believe that, but I do think Some believe that, as I've learned over the years. And then, Islam believes Jesus to be a good prophet. Judaism believes Jesus to be a bad prophet or not a prophet at all. And then, of course, we in Christianity believe Jesus to be God in the flesh. So while there are different beliefs on Jesus, notice all the different beliefs about Jesus are surrounded by who he was, what his identity was, not what he was teaching, rather who he was. Because I've not even heard an atheist that has been intellectually honest and read the Gospels try and contradict Jesus' teachings, because you can't. Even one great atheist philosopher said, if you want to have a productive, good life, you got to at least be a cultural Christian. And I think that right there showcases reliability for Christ. Now, to get back to the Buddha, where with Jesus the debate is, who was Jesus of Nazareth? The debate's not around his teachings. The debate is around, who is Jesus of Nazareth? The debate with Buddha is, what is he teaching? Is he teaching that suffering is an illusion? Is he teaching that suffering is something that we all go through, but we have to cut off our desires and we don't suffer? Or is he like what is he teaching? That is my major intellectual issue with the Buddha. I don't know what he is teaching, and he makes no sense. It's kind of ironic. A faith built after a philosopher makes no logical sense. It just doesn't. And again, I have a great respect for the Buddha. He's a wise man, but when I start digging deep into all these different things about the Buddha, I can't even begin to wrap my head around who he is, and I can't even begin to understand, okay, what is true about the Buddha? What is false about the Buddha? Did the Buddha even exist? Because there's evidence that showcases that Buddha may not have even existed. He may have just been someone that was made up. So, if I'm questioning the very existence of the Buddha, and if I'm questioning exactly what the Buddha was truly teaching, where when I look at Jesus, it's clear what he's teaching. He's teaching love, grace, forgiveness. He died on a cross for us. He rose from the dead. He's coming back again to expel evil once and for all. Clearly, Jesus is reliable, where the Buddha is not reliable. So while some Buddhist teachings and teachings of Christ may cross over, there's a lot more that goes against each other. Do not be fooled into that false sense of thinking that Jesus and Buddha taught the same things. That is false. That is a fallacy you have fallen into, a pit you have fallen into. Yes, Buddha taught some of the same things that Jesus taught. That is true. But Jesus and Buddha went against one another's teachings more than they agreed on teachings. So, in conclusion, when it comes down to it, when you look at Jesus and the Buddha, who is reliable? Look at history. Look at history, and you'll find that there's evidence showcasing that the Buddha may not have even existed and that he was just made up. Although personally I don't believe that. I believe the Buddha was a real person. And and then even then, when you look at the Buddha, you see history speaking that he was just a philosopher. He was just a dude giving theories. The Buddha truly is not reliable. Can you learn a lot from the Buddha? Yes. But can you really implement the teachings of the Buddha into your day-to-day life and be better off? No. I'm sorry. You can't. You can't. Because if the Buddha were reliable, why then has nobody else achieved nirvana like the Buddha apparently did? That right there shows you that the Buddha is not reliable. That the Buddha was just an agnostic philosopher from the East who had some good teachings, but also some that didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Can't cut off your desires. Can you overcome them? Yes. But can you cut them off and be like this empty shell? No. That's impossible. But you look at Jesus, you look at the fact that he struggled with temptation, struggled with desire, and he overcame it all. Lived a sinless life, loved his enemies, forgave his enemies, prayed for his enemies at the cross, was crucified, performed many miracles for hundreds, thousands of people to see. And he rose from the dead. Jesus' grave is empty. The Buddha's grave is full. And that alone will tell you why Jesus over the Buddha. Thank you all for listening to this video, and I will be uploading some shorts from different YouTube channels, from Cliff Connectley, Pastor Cliff Connectley, talking about the Buddha, and I hope someday I can have Cliff Connectley on this channel and do an interview with him. I would love to have that happen at some point. But with that all being said, I thank you all for joining us, and remember, keep it kind, keep it respectful in the comments, and remember this: Jesus loves you. He's reaching out to you. He wants a relationship with you. If you grab on to Christ, he will never ever let you go. And one more thing I want to say about why Jesus over the Buddha. I didn't come up with this analogy, someone else did. If you were in the ocean and you couldn't swim and you were drowning, and on the boat, Jesus and the Buddha are standing there, all the Buddha will do is throw down a book at you saying this is how you swim, but I'm not going to do anything for you. If you drown, you drown. That's your problem. But Jesus, on the other hand, will dive into the water, take you by the hand, and bring you to safety. And all Christ asks of you is to follow him. So who are you going to trust? The one that refused to save your life, the Buddha, or the one that saved your life, Jesus? I think the answer's clear. Definitely is to me. But is the answer clear to you? Time will tell. God bless you all. And happy Memorial Day. And now, 10 bells of silence for all the soldiers that didn't make it back home.